Casey Carl. I have the privilege of serving as the city clerk for the city of Minneapolis, and tonight I'm here to provide a final report on our 46-day early absentee voting period for this year's 2021 municipal election. Today at 5 o'clock, we closed that 46-day early voting period on this year's municipal election, and so far, we have accepted 28,831 early ballots. That includes ballots that were cast early in person here at our Early Vote Center, by mail, through ballot drop-off, from agent delivery, from our overseas and our military voters, and from voters who've been served over the past few weeks from hospitals and nursing homes. Overall, the theme for this year's early voting period, as compared to the last municipal election in 2017, is double. We have accepted about double the total number of early ballots this year as compared to 4 years ago in 2017. And we served almost double the number of in-person early voters this year on our final day of the early voting period of that 46-day period as we did 4 years ago. 4 years ago, we served a total of 871 voters on the last day of the early voting period. Today, we served a total of 1,610 voters on the final day of this year's early voting period. With 28,831 early ballots in hand already, that's 140% higher in terms of participation levels from our voters than it was 4 years ago in 2017. This year, as I've said, we have 28,831 ballots. 4 years ago in 2017, we had 16,856 ballots. The total reflects a total of 11% of our total registered voter turnout. So with that, that means we have approximately 90% of our registered voter base that still could turn out tomorrow at our polls. Polls open at 134 precincts tomorrow morning at 7 a.m. And that means if all 90% of our registered voters turned out, we could see 228,000 plus voters showing up on election day to cast ballots in what is certainly shaping up to be a historic municipal election for the city of Minneapolis. So that is my summary of today's early vote period. I do have additional comments to offer in terms of election day activities, post-election day activities in terms of canvassing, results reporting, and when voters can expect to see data. I'll stop now to see if there are questions and then proceed to the rest of my prepared comments. So for this election, we have a total in hand of 28,831 early ballots. 2017, we had a total of 16,856. So there's a difference of about 140%. Obviously, much higher this year, 4 years later, than it was 4 years ago in 2017.
Any reason that you guys have or why you think it was so popular this time?
I think it's a combination of the increasing efforts by the city and the state to make voting more accessible, more easy for voters in all regards. 2014, we started with no excuse absentee voting. Last year, COVID tested us in terms of creativity, so we had an increase in mail balloting. We've seen that stay steady. We've increased our voter drop-off opportunities so people can request a mail ballot and then bring it back in person, but drop it off instead of going through the line. So the return of in-person early voting has been a positive sign, and I think it's an indication that we'll expect to see a busy day at the polls tomorrow. But the early vote continues to be very popular and grow year after year after year, and in the aftermath of last year, plus the combination of competitive votes up and down the ballot in all our races, and three pretty important ballot questions that our voters will decide, I think has driven our competition this year.
Yeah, I was looking back at, like the last 20 years municipal elections, highest turnout that I could find about 42% in a municipal. Any estimates on tomorrow if you think that will beat that?
Try not to make predictions, because if you get it wrong, you have to learn how to eat glass, and I'm not into eating glass if I make predictions. So what I would say is that Minneapolis is a very engaged community, has always had high voter participation, even in an off-year municipal-only election. Nationally, if you have an off-year city election like we're doing this year, you're lucky to get about a 20% turnout. 4 years ago, we had 44% turnout. I wouldn't be surprised if we beat that this year, high 40%, maybe even 50% turnout of our total registered voter population.
How's the ranked choice voting going? Too early to tell, or how can you share how it's been for you?
From what I've observed of myself, things here in terms of ranked choice voting for in-person voters seems to be going pretty well. We've had a few people who have had a few mess-ups or have said, whoops, I didn't mean to vote that way, or I need a new ballot. So that's allowed in any election, and you experience that with ranked choice voting and with traditional voting. So we've had some of that reported here in the in-person voting center, and would expect to have it tomorrow, but nothing more than usual.
What are you expecting in terms of timeline for results, both tomorrow and later in the week?
Nice transition into the next piece, which is what happens after the election. So, of course, all polls open tomorrow at 7 a.m. All of our polls in 134 precincts will be open until 8 p.m. and until the last voter in line at that time is able to cast their ballots. So sometime between 8 and 8:30, we would expect that the ballots will be, or the precincts would be closed, and results will be transmitted to Hennepin County. Hennepin County receives the results from all of our precincts, and they merge that data from Election Day with the early vote data that we send them. And that then is uploaded to the Secretary of State's website. I would expect that results from all of those precincts will start being loaded to the Secretary of State's website for public access sometime as soon as 8:30 and would probably be done as late as 9:30 or 10. So we should have all results in. My expectation is sometime around 10 o'clock, unless there are some technical challenges that we experience on Election Day. We're going to cross our fingers and say results in by no later than 10 o'clock tomorrow night. In terms of results reporting, I think it's really important to share with voters that there are two sites that they're going to want to monitor tomorrow night. The first one is the Secretary of State's website, as always. On election night, results will be uploaded to the Secretary of State's website. For our 3 ballot questions, because those are simple yes/no answers, we will know the answers to all 3 ballot questions tomorrow night. We won't necessarily know all of the answers to the 25 races for the offices on the ballot, because some of the races may require some tabulation through ranked choice voting. So after we upload all of the data to the Secretary of State's website, the team here at the city's Elections and Voter Services will take all of the raw data showing the 3 rankings for every candidate in all 25 races on the ballot. We will eliminate any undervotes, any overvotes, any undeclared write-in candidates, and do some other cleanup of the data. Once we do that, we will do an analysis of only the first choice rankings for each candidate in every race. And based on a maximum possible threshold, which is a falsely inflated threshold to declare a winner, only used on election night, if it's possible to declare an unofficial winner, we will do that. We will announce those winners and post them to our website, which is vote.minneapolismn.gov. We will also post that information through our social media on Twitter, which is @VoteMinneapolis. Once we have finished all of the races by announcing either we have declared unofficial winners or not, then the next day, on Wednesday, November 3rd, we'll return and start the ranked choice voting tabulation. We anticipate beginning that process around 9 a.m. on Wednesday, and we anticipate completing ranked choice voting tabulations in any races that require that additional tabulation of the ballot by the end of Wednesday. So we will have results for all 25 seats by the end of Wednesday. We will have the answer on the 3 ballot questions by the end of Tuesday night, election night tomorrow. It's @VoteMPLS. And so I will also just share the way we're planning on processing on Wednesday in order to give the public, media, and candidates a heads up. When we are finished tabulating results in any race, we will first post through our social media a notice that we have declared an unofficial winner and that we will post it to the website. That should give everyone approximately a 5-minute warning to get to the elections website at vote.minneapolismn.gov. And then the upload will be made and the announcement will be posted for public access to the website of which candidates are declared the unofficial winners in any of those races. We go in ballot order, so we'll start with the mayor, then we go through all 13 city council, then we go to the Board of Estimate and Taxation, and then we go to the Park Board. So that's the order we'll be processing those races on November 3rd for any that require RCV tabulation. Feels really good to be getting done with the election.
How's it been for everybody, the city staff, getting ready for this, with the record turnout and everything?
It's been inspiring to see voters. I mentioned earlier we had 1,600 voters alone come through this space today in person. That didn't include the number of people whose mail ballots were returned, who came through in their cars and dropped off their ballots, the people who came in their cars and voted curbside and needed assistance from our election judges. So the election judges, of course, it's a great service for them to be here. We love our election judges who are very excited to be on the front lines of local democracy, making democracy happen. And it's been a fun day, but we're ready for tomorrow, and then we're ready to finish the vote and get some rest.
Did big early voting turnouts, last November, kind of a different beast? Did that help you guys streamline the process this time around?
Helped us mostly, obviously, because last year was primarily a mail election because of concerns around COVID. And traditionally, at least in Minneapolis, the bulk of our vote comes in on election day at the polls in person. And so the stress on the system last year to really test, are you ready for the bulk to shift to mail, caused us to rethink and make process improvements to our mail operation. And we've seen improvements continue this year because our timeliness factor to process the mail ballots each night has increased. It used to be that we would close the polls each day of early voting, and it would take several hours to get the results done. Now we're down to within an hour and a half, we have the results for that day tabulated. So the experience last year has helped improve our process internally. Thank you, everyone. Thank you.